This is Trixie the Golden Witch, and today's video is a paid commission from the Anime Guru to talk about their video, the top 10 anime of the decade so far. I charged $50 for this video, so I'm going to talk a little bit of shop just up front, especially because this video is oriented towards YouTubers. Like, this is for people like the Anime Guru who are running smaller channels and looking for advice on what they can do to make their channel pop, to make them stand out more. Actually, I should really back up and start judging this right from the thumbnail and the title, shouldn't I? So this thumbnail would not ever get me to click on this video because I tend to stay away from like gooner trash image, like, you know, this what we see here, this type of engagement. I tend to make certain assumptions about the creator, mostly that they are very young. If I see a lot of goon imagery, I assume that you are a young creator, which is fine, but I tend to, especially on the subject of anime where I already know a lot, I tend to gravitate towards older creators who I expect to know more than me, although there are plenty of younger creators who do know lots of stuff I don't. It's just that they're really interested in esoteric knowledge. Someone like that one Lucario fan, like the types of stuff that they look into is just different than the types of stuff that I look into. So like there's an interest in comparing notes, even if they don't necessarily have the kind of worldliness to bring to the content that like an older creator would have, being that I think Lucario fan's like 21. I don't know how old the Anime Guru is, but I do really appreciate you have the Furukafuka avatar. I can't imagine you're too young, because I'm seeing Furukafuka and Cowboy Bebop like right in front of my face right now, and you know, that's too much of my upbringing. Actually, I think I have a picture of my cake. Yeah, literally right here. Check this out. This is my 16th birthday cake. My dead name's in thankfully in kana, so so only Japanese readers can even understand it. But yeah, my mom did this for my 16th birthday. She here's a couple more of her cake designs I just happen to have downloaded in this folder. But yeah, so I appreciate the Furukafuka avatar. She's definitely one of my favorite literally me characters. And seeing right away this shot from Cowboy Bebop, arguably the first like really revolutionary part from Cowboy Bebop, because it's the first of the crazy fight scenes, all of which have been copied endlessly. So, you know, so this is like like straight up the most like right away recognizable iconic 90s anime shot possible. I'm stressing the 90s because I already heard the first couple words of this. It starts off talking about 90s anime, but like, so I do think this shot puts me in a very specific state of mind because I know it so well. And for me, that makes me instantly engaged with the video, but in kind of a way where I'm simultaneously feeling like this is not going to show me anything I've never seen before, at least at the start. Like, because I guess the excitement I have going into this is I don't know what should be the top 10 anime of the decade so far. Like, if you asked me to come up with 10, Frieren is in there somewhere. Chainsaw Man, the anime is not my favorite part though. I like the manga. Both of those, I've really just read the manga, so I can't even really say that they're the best anime. They're definitely top 10 manga of the decade so far. I have no idea what should be in this list. So, you know, seeing Cowboy Bebop at the start, it kind of puts me in a comfort zone that I'm now going to be taken out of going through the list, and that is kind of exciting. You know, so if the point of this was to rope in millennials like me, like people who remember Cowboy Bebop, and get us caught up on what are the new anime of the decade, this is a good start. All right, let's watch this video. Oh, by the way, I said I was going to talk business at the start, and then I just jumped into it anyways. If you are somebody who does YouTube, it's very difficult to figure out what exactly is the value proposition I'm making to an audience that would cause them to like pay me, because there's endless YouTube content now, and probably endless YouTube content in the vein of what you're doing, that like if somebody is going to pay for that type of content, they probably already are from someone else. So you're kind of trying to get them to spend even more of their time and money in your sphere. So, like, the fact that you're paying me to do this and the fact that I'm, like, well, I guess it'll depend on if your video is good or not and people decide to go check out your channel from this. But this could either be tremendously beneficial to you, that I am drawing this connection between our channels that will cause them to feed off of each other from now on. Kind of, we're literally networking, federalizing. Or if this video really sucks, it could turn people off of ever subscribing to your channel. So it could be a huge loss. Now, granted, there are people who might just want to watch you grow. Obviously, the video would have to be really bad for people to be like, oh, I hate this person, I'm never going to watch their content again. But that has happened, all right? That has happened. And the reason I charged $50 for this is that Anime Guru was very clear. They were very insistent on wanting this to happen. And I said the video is 30 minutes long, so that's I'm going to charge you, $1 a minute for watching it. And then I knew there would be more than 20 minutes worth of commentary. Now, I'm not trying to overcharge. I know that I'm also going to make money on the back end by making it into a video, running ads in the video. But both of us stand to benefit from this, we'll call it a collaboration, that you have produced. This is, in my mind, you have produced a collaborative video between us, essentially. And the more we think of things like that, I think it'll be easier for YouTubers to figure out where is their value and where can they make these trades and offers, not that I think we all need to be spending our money between YouTubers per se, but that like you can commission videos. If like people like the way you explain stuff, they will pay you to explain stuff for them. And it's happened for me before, but it's taken me a really long time to figure out like what's fair for me. Like $50 for this is only fair for me because I know exactly how I'm going to do it. If there was any extent to which I was going to have to figure out how to do this, I would have dramatically been undercharging with $50. You could argue that I'm undercharging anyways, but I'm also not trying to rake a young creator. I don't know how much money you've got. I'm not trying to get you in trouble in your financial situation. I'm trying to help out other YouTubers and give them advice on how to do this better and also make some money. So I'm very happy to make $50 that I was not going to have otherwise. But, any less than that, and I don't think it would have been worth my while, and I wouldn't encourage you to undersell yourself. Consider the fact that you're going to be not just watching something, you're also going to be thinking about it. You might not get something out of it right away, so you might have to really spend time with it. It might take longer than you think to figure out how you're going to cover a subject matter. I'm very confident I can talk about an anime YouTube video. Very, very confident. If it was anything else, it might have been a different conversation, or I might not have taken the job, If they wanted me to watch like a French cartoon that I don't speak French, so I have to learn, what the language barrier context is before I can even talk about it, it would be a different conversation, But anyway, just keep that kind of stuff in mind if you're a YouTuber looking for ways to expand. Let's watch this video.
In the 90s, we had Cowboy Bebop. In the aughts, we had Fooly Cooly. And in the 2020s, we have modern classics such as My Wife is 10, I Turned Into a Vending Machine, and this. But with the passage of time seemingly moving faster than ever, this glorious decade of anime is already halfway done. So let's take a break from barreling towards our imminent doom.
See, I like this intro because you've shown me a bunch of trash that obviously we all expect there to be trash. It's funny how bad the trash is, but you don't dwell on it. You're just kind of using it as a way to build tension towards like getting us excited for, okay, surely these aren't the top 10. There must have been something good you're going to show me. Unless this is like a parody and they're all going to be trash. That would actually be hilarious.
Doom, and look back on all of the great shows we've had over these past few years. I personally don't like myself very much, so
Jesus Christ. Shinji Ikari type beat. Shinji on the beat, ho. Self-hate!
I've been watching a lot of anime recently, and while there are a few promising shows I haven't been able to check out yet, I've been on a pretty crazy grind. I mean, anyone else here watch both seasons of Let's Make a Mug as well as the dental hygiene?
I've never heard of any of this. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, anime fans. I'm sorry for, I just decided I would be the cute girl instead of watching the cute girls on that. I talk to, everybody I talk to, I feel like is somebody who grew up watching shows like this, and now we are just talking to each other instead.
Gene spin-off only accessible through a non-translated orthodontistry app? Didn't.
Bird, his brother has a girlfriend, and she told me that her favorite show in high school was Lucky Star, and I was just like, we're gonna be friends forever.
Think so. Keep in mind, I don't believe in objectivity with my ratings, I just speak from my heart, so don't trash me too hard, but also feel free to drop your own lists down in the comments. But enough prefacing. Without further ado, I present to you all the top 10 anime of the decade.
Alright, let's go. Let's go. I pull up.
Number 10.
Oh, I love the use of this song. You may dream. That's the Karekano opening, right? I hope this is a video you got past all copyright filters. And unlike the person I was talking about before, Nekomancer, if you search that name, you'll find the videos where we were just blowing him out. But that was an example of somebody who I charged them exactly the rate of $1 a minute to watch the video, but I ended up offering lots and lots of commentary, so it went way over time, and then they didn't like the commentary, so I ended up arguing with the person in the chat. The whole chat turned on them. It was a fucking debacle, and their video had all these copyright problems, so it caused copyright problems for the stream. That's why you got to be careful who you take your offers from. If you're gonna do commission work, be careful who you take commissions from. That goes for all industries.
Somebody obsessed with making top 10 lists and ranking everything, sometimes I find it hard to tell why I fall in love with the anime I do. Is it the visuals, the story, how they complement each other, the theming, the
By the way, lots of good taste just floating around in this video. Just thought I'd point out all the good taste floating around here. Sangatsu no Lion, if you haven't seen it, it's good for your soul. It will help you grow up and mature as a person.
There's just so many factors to consider that sometimes I wish I could just cut open my skull and look directly into my head, getting to the root of why.
What if I did a series where I just watched nothing but Oyaji Moe anime and become like the Oyaji Moe Fujo that I was always meant to be?
I feel the way I feel.
I know this is a good video because I've already been inspired and I'm like 2 minutes in, so you're doing well so far. All right, okay, I forgot this was in this decade. Wait, how can that be possible? Didn't I argue about this show with like Mother's Basement or something? There's no way I was still talking to them in 2020, right? Or am I thinking of am I wrong? Was it just did me and Nate talk about this show together and that's it? I only remember seeing the first episode. So I know I talked about...
It invaded rules on every front imaginable. Here we have a mind-bending psych thriller from known lunatic Maijo Otaro, framed by a slick and consistent production from director Ei Aoki of Fate Zero fame. It's the perfect balance of genuinely thought-provoking mystery writing with forward-thinking messaging and just plain cool shit.
I just realized we're in browser mode. I can just go and look up 2020. Wow. What the fuck? Why did I think this was like
Basically, it's about a system which can look directly into the mind.
I only ever watched the first episode of this, I think. And I feel like I remember having an argument with somebody. Maybe it was just commenters. I really can't remember.
Mind of a serial liquidator at the moment right before they whack somebody. And our pink-haired detective boy has to ascertain the identity of the perpetrator through clues found in their own mind.
Ascertain the identity of the perpetrator? Whoa now. Throwing around them $10 words.
These glimpses into the id of these people are chock full of that wonderful visual metaphor I love so much, and are used as a brilliant tool to explore the concept of self. I tend to not love brooding anime geniuses with a hard edge, but for some reason this show's main character just works for me. From his epic diatribes ripping apart the ideologies of other psychopaths, to the moments where the show drops an insert track and turns into a hype TikTok edit, to the insane twist.
How epic are these diatribes? Man, you're definitely selling me I need to watch the rest of this show. This is like high on the list of anime I didn't finish that I knew I would regret not finishing, but nobody fucking talked about them, so I didn't feel like I would make any money if I watched and talked about them.
And the shockingly well choreographed MMA fight towards the end. This show just drips badassery, and I am all the way here for it. I think this is a perfect show to kick off the list with because a lot of pundits who speak on anime are kind of dumb and try to separate things that are objectively good and things that are just cool. People oftentimes create false dichotomies by saying shows are style over substance, when really there's substance to the style. It takes a different kind of genius to craft an enthralling aesthetic.
Oh, holy shit. Is this Bambi? What the fuck? This looks gorgeous. I don't remember this shot.
To create unforgettable moments of badassery.
You can't just drop some like masterpiece color work in the middle of TV anime. It makes it a lot harder to look at the TV anime afterward.
And to craft shots with such beauty as to leave.
And I don't even like these Disney movies. The color work is undeniable.
Leave the viewer salivating. Really, editor? Real. Storytelling is just as important, but I think what
I like that gag because I would assume that the vocals are recorded before the editing is done. So like, you know, some kind of notation would had to have been made of that there was going to be, you know, whether you specifically, I don't know if you are the editor or not, but whether you specifically told them to put feet pics in there or just like something that would cause you to say that. It's a funny gag.
What really matters most is how it complements and harmonizes with the show's presentation. Id Invaded not only exemplifies this principle, but explores an analogous concept for its main theme.
I gotta say, when you start saying stuff like exemplifies and analogous and explores like all in the same sentence, it can start to sound like I'm losing the point of what you're saying in how many big words you've said. Like, I'm just thinking about those words. Like, damn, analogous. I realize that my videos probably do this to people as well. I try to, at least, like, in the delivery, I don't know, try to, like, draw it out a little bit more, I guess. Like, just say those big words a little bit slower or, with a cadence that makes them a little easier to remember, I guess.
Who are you? Are you a fundamentally good person just battling through obstacles of temptation, or a free spirit forced to conform to a society demanding that you act moral? What lies at the center of who you are, and why is it important to be in touch with this? Why you do what you do is essential to understanding and acting ethically. However, once you assign yourself a self-fulfilling role of identity, your dishonesty will bite you. We are not good or bad people, just people with differences who all need to learn how the hell to live together anyway, and this is a series about the justice system.
I'm making this series come off as a middle school reading level study in moral ambiguity. It is not. I am specifically referring to the philosophical framework the series explores as opposed to any, whoa, maybe the psycho is more sane than everyone else and it's just a matter of perspective themes I kind of seem to be implying. It's hard to boil down, like, something that is like, I'm sure this show already is, like, very dense, and so rather than you're trying to pack something dense even more dense. You're trying to take something that is itself, like, meant to be unpacked. It's meant to be something you watch and then you talk about and you think about and then you expand on it and it becomes bigger than the actual thing. So trying to reduce that into a couple of minutes, you are inevitably going to make it sound dumb. But, like, I think honestly maybe you didn't need to even explain it this much. Like, I don't think people are generally sold on something through describing its themes unless they really specifically relate to those themes or, like, it's something that's in your head already. But, like, to me, this show, like, the premise is the most obviously interesting part, and the editing, the pacing, like, the way it's written, I think that the way you've described this show, it's like you've gotten close to figuring out what the point of it is, but like you'll bring up something like Maijo Otaro being this crazy writer, and like that means something to me personally because I know who Maijo Otaro is, but I can't imagine that detail means anything to most people unless you were going to talk about other things Maijo Otaro has done and compare it and like how do these themes relate to him as a writer. Otherwise, it's just not really worth mentioning him, you know? So like that's what I mean when I say there's like this scattershot kind of, you're touching on lots of things that are important to why the show is good, but they aren't important to making the audience want to watch it, because you're not going to explain why the show is good in 1 minute. Why the show is good is something that will take people experiencing it to understand. You're just trying to get them to watch it and to understand that there is something special about it. So, you know, I don't want to try to like rewrite your segment or anything like that. I just think that, you know, I think you tried to be a little too broad. Like you tried to say too much about this thing that deserves its own, not just video, but like series of videos, you know, to really unpack what it's saying.
And its instrumental role of establishing such an environment. We explore characters who hate and disavow parts of who they are out of shame, seeing them as demons trying to infect them.
Talking about the characters and their motivations, that is a lot more likely to draw people in. Like if you talk about, I think the way I would have sold this would have been to start with specifically like what is this guy after, you know, because that's what people connect with stories the most through. And I think that was part of the argument that I was in about this show, actually, was that I connected with it right away just through the premise being interesting to me. Whereas I remember other people saying like, well, I don't care about any of the, like, I don't know who I'm supposed to be rooting for or like, what is it about until like the end of the episode. And even then it's very ambiguous, you know? So I do think you pointing out like this factor of what is the emotional resonance of the show. It's about characters who don't like themselves, you know. Hey, me, person who doesn't like myself, loves this show. About people who don't like themselves. Like now you're getting into something more core to why this appeals to you and it's on your top 10 list.
And while battling your demons is noble, these demons aren't actually some evil entities afflicting you. They're just other parts of yourself. And not recognizing that can be quite harmful in the long run, as uncomfortable as it may be. This show is not about declaring what is good and what is bad, but rather exploring scenarios holistically and truly getting to the root of what makes these situations and these people tick. And that's the exact perspective I'm most interested in.
Yeah, so that whole part was really good. I think you could have cut a lot of what was before that and kept a lot of that, and you'd be fine. I think that if somebody is committed to watching a video like this, a lot of that fluff, they'll kind of just dissociate, or like it just doesn't cling, you know, it doesn't have a clinginess. And then there's the parts that do have a clinginess. Is that how, what is it that M. Night Shyamalan said? A stickiness to it. You know, that part right there had a stickiness to it because it told me what the core resonance was. I don't like myself, they don't like themselves, but I learned how to deal with the reason, you know, like I learned this perspective on how to deal with that through this show. That's great. You know, that was more important than anything else you said about the show, to the extent that if you really wanted to be hyperactive with your editing, you could have cut everything before that and just had the bit that's like the emotional content, you know? And this video could probably be like 8 minutes long, and it might perform better that way because that's a type of content that's not super served on YouTube, you know, as opposed to 30-minute kind of sit with popcorn analysis video. We are actually a little bit underserved on like quippy, quick, like here's the deal, now let me fuck off, especially if it's a recommendations video, because ultimately this is time that I could be spending watching those shows, you know, so like kind of the quicker you give them to me, the quicker I can go off and then go watch them.
Now, you may think that sounds like the most head-ass and pretentious shit ever. However, number 9. What does it mean to rep a set? Being
That is a fucking awesome transition.
Part of a gang is no small thing. It takes a whole lot of sacrifice. The cruelty of circumstance and corporate greed conspire to turn everyday people into killers. And whether you rep the east side, the west side, or the Oinky Doink Cafe, these streets will treat you with the exact same harsh indifference they do any other poor bastard cursed to push product on them. Of course, I'm talking about Akiba Maid War, the show where a gang turf war is fought between maid cafes with animal-themed moe maids as the grunts. Yep.
That was an awesome lead-in.
A surprisingly perceptive exploration of sacrifice, identity, and what it means to be a team. To be a maid.
I'm already sold. Like, that was a perfect way to describe the soul of a show.
Now, this may not sound like it's to your tastes, but it's absolutely to mine. Not only is the theming in this series great, but what truly sets it apart is its mastery of tone shifts and comedy, bouncing back and forth between the most hardcore shit anime has to offer and just makes everything hit so much harder. This show's like a mix of Black Lagoon and, I don't know, Phineas and Ferb? I mean, really, like, we got Doofenshmirtz tier evil contraptions, but at the same time, the threat of mortality always placed firmly on the table. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but that makes it even more hype. This is an absurd tale, an anime original, a self-contained story, and a brilliant parody/satire. If you think you know what's coming next, you'll be made a fool of, because this plot is usually insane. There's just something I love so much about seeing
I love her. Yeah, this looks lit.
These people push to their absolute limit, waiting to see them finally give in and pull the trigger, ending the life.
It's the very definition of anime with all caps and spaces between the letters. Anime.
Also, the show is genuinely hilarious. Number 8. Hey, you. Yes, you. Are you looking for a chronological dystopian coming-of-age supernatural action saga mystery narrative?
Oh, I love that. That was a really good edit.
If so, you're looking for heaven.
Very much gave me the vibe of the opening of the Underscores album. Or not the whole album, but the song Locals, Machinery, Catharsis, that whole bit.
Heavenly Delusion. Production IG blessed us with one of the slickest TV anime in recent memory.
Okay, yeah, this should be on the list. I forgot that there was actually a really great year for anime a couple of years ago that me and Bird, like, covered all the new shows about. Yeah, Heavenly Delusion. Now I'm thinking, okay, can Jigoku Raku be on here? Because I love that show. Fuck, what else was really good that we covered? Something else was really good.
And a story that downright blew my mind. With an intriguing narrative structure and thematic emphasis on chaos, this series pushed all the right buttons for me, even...
This is one of those shows that, like, it's really good, but it's gonna require me to definitely rewatch the first season when the second one finally comes out. Like, it's the kind of thing where if it had been, 3 months later, maybe even 6 months later, I would have still been, like, on the hype wave. But something this, like, particular and kind of obscure, like, it feels weird to come back to years later and, I, like, totally have to re-immerse myself. I mean, I guess I'm glad. I don't know how long the manga is or how long the anime will be. It's one of those things where it feels weird to imagine that this would go on for a very long time because stuff like it doesn't usually, but I don't know, maybe it will? Who knows?
Even if it dragged on a bit in the middle. It's gory, it's tense, it's conceptually scary, and it's very, very shocking. Let's talk about that for a minute. This show has often been criticized for relying on shock value, a generally frowned upon storytelling technique for good reason. Most people think it's a cheap and tacky way to get the viewer's attention, and while I personally don't mind if something's tacky as long as it's interesting, I don't find this show to be especially tacky whatsoever. The shocking reveals just aren't cheap. It is well orchestrated to be horrific. Why? Because
people who say that stuff about shock value they don't like that a show can shock them. They don't like that they felt shock, and they're like appalled that it happened. You know, they're like, oh, this is relying on shock value because it shocked me, and I didn't like that. It's like, sometimes shock is part of the point. Sometimes things are shocking. Sometimes things that happen will shock you. And especially if you're living in a post-apocalypse where there's monsters running around and, like, you know, you're scrounging for survival. I think the fact that the show has kind of a comfy pacing when it's not in its shocking moments, which is realistic, is what makes people feel like, you know, they just simply didn't see it coming. And so that tone whiplash creates this feeling of, oh, this isn't what I expected, and I'm offended, or I'm excited. For me, it was really, like, when I read the manga, I remember when you get to that page where, you know, the woman gets whipped through, it is a feeling of like, oh, it's that kind of story. You know, like, that was immediately the sinking feeling for me, was like, oh, this isn't going to be comfy or cozy at all. This is going to be scary and off-putting, you know, and, but it was also, that was the moment it got interesting. Like, the story was middlingly aesthetically interesting, and then it became a story, you know, when the shock came in. So I think it just sorts out who its audience is in that moment.
Because Heavenly Delusion is evil. Pure evil. This series is not a pleasant watch. It's disturbing. The story goes into places that some people have argued are distasteful, and if you have any sensitivities to certain subject matters, I would actively recommend against watching this. Snowflakes do not interact. But if you don't, get ready to have your mind bent into a pretzel, salted by forbidden wisdom, and then eaten by an incomprehensible cosmic deity. It's probably worth mentioning that this show is very unfinished at the moment and ends on something of a cliffhanger, but when considering just how much this show has to offer, between its intricate characters...
You know, after I just remembered, you know, everything I just said about needing to revisit this show, it is one of those that pays off on rewatches anyway, so it's probably actually for the better that you would have to rewatch it and remember shit before the next season comes out.
Character dynamics, bizarre psychological explorations, and true understanding of what makes something horrifying, it's enough for me to very strongly recommend it anyway. And that's not even to mention the character animation and visual spectacle of it all. I have a whole video on this series that I'll link in the description, but the bottom line is that this show is and that's what makes it stand out. Number 7. Every once in a while, an anime series with great action animation and mature themes comes around and is nothing short of a critical and commercial darling. Cowboy Bebop in the 90s, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood in the 2000s, AOT in the 2010s, and now we have what appears to be this generation's chosen one. That's right, I'm talking about Chainsaw Man. Frieren has been latched onto as this generation.
That was a triple cross. Incredible. That was, what a lead-in. That was good narrative. I like that.
Generation's favorite anime, sporting the #1 slot on MyAnimeList.com, and I believe what makes it so special is the character work and that god dang emotional range. This show will have several episodes of contemplative journeying with low stakes and a therapeutic vibe, before jumping into a several episode long epic series of wizard battles that sell Frieren as arguably the most badass protagonist of this generation. This is a show about time, and as such, I think it's so crucial that it's been allowed to take its sweet time, with Studio Madhouse dropping a 28 episode first season. Because of this added flexibility, the show isn't afraid to commonly detour and smell the roses, something very thematically important as we are seeing the whole life of this woman. Not just the most thrilling moments where she slays the Demon King, not just the long stretches of slice of life and mundanity between, but a whole exploration of everything that makes her the elf she is today. She instantly has become one of my favorite modern protagonists, mostly because of how many angles her character is explored from, and the different sections of this show feeling like different shows entirely really makes it feel like the journey of life itself. This is a beautiful series of emotional highs and lows that is just so easy to get lost in. True bliss can be found within drinking in the beautiful scenery of this world as we appreciate the friends we've made along the journey of life. I wonder how many of you guys thought I was actually going to put Chainsaw Man on my list.
Yeah, I like
might
the
put
one with the
Jujutsu
big
Kaisen
chainsaw
on
in
your
it.
list.
Because it has the big chainsaw with all the teeth in it. It's a huge chainsaw. And
Oh, I see.
oh.
I love the way you did this. The way you did this, this whole couple of transitions. Obviously, Free Ren belongs in there. I've only seen the first 4 episodes because I live my life like I am actually Free Ren. But I have read the manga up to chapter 164 or something like that, and it's very good.
Well,
And so is Chainsaw
cat's
Man.
out
I haven't read any of part 2 of Chainsaw Man yet, though.
of the bag. I really do like this show.
Bruh.
I only even joke because this show gets a lot of flack. Not just Chainsaw Man haters, but also fans of the show I've spoken to deem it immature, overly simplistic, and overly horny, expressing that while it's pretty entertaining, it's not as good as the truly great anime out there which take themselves much more seriously and are supposedly deeper. I think this is hilariously ironic. Now, I'm not going to sit here and argue that Chainsaw Man isn't at times immature. I'm not going to argue it at a perfect adaptation. I'm not even going to argue that all the main characters are super likable. But I would be lying if I said I didn't immediately know I would love this show when I saw this clip of Denji in Power.
How'd you feel about your comrades dying?
It's whatever.
Gee, I love the anime.
So, I was thinking about that, like, in terms of, like, your writing, your performance, your editing, I'm totally okay with this segment here. And it's very, like, normal YouTube content. So it's not something that's, like, that, like, causes a question naturally. It's more like I'm interrogating, could this be cut and why? Like, and there's been a few moments where you're kind of, like, either addressing arguments you've already seen or preemptively addressing arguments you think might happen. And I find with videos that it can be very hit or miss, because if you're making an interesting point, then that's fine. And here you're kind of making a point, but I don't know if you really needed to bring up how other people feel in order to communicate how you feel about this show. And, like, considering that if this is a top 10 anime of the decade video, you've got to be writing this from the perspective of someone who's never seen any of these anime is coming to this video. Like, if I'm somebody who's brand new to anime, I've never seen any of it, and I've got friends who keep telling me I need to get into anime, and I think, what are the best anime from this decade? Because I want to know what's going on in anime right now. This could be the first video I see that introduces me to any anime at all. And it could be that you don't necessarily want that person in your audience, or that you're trying to cater more to, like, the hardcore fans. But in that case, a lot of those people already have opinions about all of this. And so maybe the argumentative part is more like you're thinking, well, everybody's already seen most of these shows. Everybody knows Chainsaw Man, so... But, like, I also don't know what everyone else's opinion is of it, though. You know, like, even just speaking personally, like, I have seen various opinions on the Chainsaw Man anime, but and probably some of the ones you're addressing, but I've also just seen so many opinions of it. You know, like, I know lots of people who don't like the anime because they prefer the manga, and for 10 different reasons, you know, that those could be. Like, there's just so... If you're going to get into the weeds of defending a show, there's so many things you could be defending it from that I think I would encourage less of it, is all I'm going to say. I would just encourage you to think less about what everyone else is saying about the thing and just focus on why you think people need to watch it.
Guru and really want to date him, and if you guys are enjoying this video, you should subscribe. But Chainsaw Man represents a philosophy that I think is so important. It's a Shonen Jump series, essentially...
Like, this segment could have started off, Chainsaw Man represents a philosophy I think is so important, and none of that lead-in was necessary.
Meaning that, while it can appeal to anyone, it was at least vaguely created with a young male audience in mind. Many Chainsaw Man fans on some level would probably reject this characterization out of insecurity or an internalized notion that media for kids is inferior, but let me explain. This series is over the top in its violence, which is sick, and in its which is also sick, which comes off as more gritty and adult to immature kids. It's important to consider that while these themes are engaged with critically and intelligently, they don't have to be. It reminds me of a quote from Shonen Jump magazine's editor-in-chief, stating, "Although such series as Chainsaw Man may contain sexual elements that kids don't understand entirely, they are still drawn to it particularly because of that fact."
That is a great fucking quote. I'm glad you brought that in. But that is a great line. It's because they don't understand it that they're drawn to it. And I think, honestly, what makes the show so good is that adults don't understand it either. Like, Chainsaw Man is so, or rather, it still has that sense of mystery, even to adults. Like, it speaks to the experience of something that we've all experienced so well that it makes you think, fuck, I need to, whatever this guy understands about the world, I want to know more of it. Because I do think Chainsaw Man has, it has a kind of, pervasive empathy to it that is very harsh, it's going to put you through the same emotional suffering that its characters go through so that you'll understand them better. And it's going to force you to really understand these characters and their situations, and I think that's what makes it powerful.
Got that quote from Kraftsdorf. I think this really applies nicely to Chainsaw Man because it's not ashamed of its more surface-level appeals. Our main character...
I forgot about Kraftsdorf. I didn't know they were still making YouTube videos. I don't know if I've seen one about Chainsaw Man from them.
Character Denji's biggest motivation thus far has been trying to touch some bobs. This is rather comical, but it's also very realistic. Not to get all Freudian, but I believe many people are extremely motivated on a fundamental level by It's one of the most central concepts to human psychology. It can give us validation, purpose, and a carnal sense of satisfaction. Yet it's often seen in anime as just no more than a lowbrow way to keep the viewer's attention. As many great characters as I can think of with tragic and brooding motivations, it's so refreshing to have a guy just be doing this to woo the girl he likes because he doesn't have any self-worth. This show is basically about an immature kid trying to fit in with adult society. Denji fights to impress certain people he wants to look mature for to get their approval. He can dress himself up in a suit and tie all he wants, but it'll never look quite right, as Denji is pure id. Oftentimes, he allows his animalistic desire for violence and survival to course through him freely, and because of this, he's surprisingly in touch with why he does the thing.
So now I think this is another part where I think you're starting to get too analytical, kind of like in the Id Invaded segment. I don't know, maybe this is, again, just a part you relate to really strongly. But it makes me feel like you're about to do a whole analysis video about Chainsaw Man.
He does, a quality I wish a lot more people and pundits shared. Denji is a man who at least thinks he knows what he wants and doesn't lie about it. Just as this series knows it's smart and doesn't have to prove it through repressing its more childish elements and taking itself so damn serious all the time. It has deep characters for you to sink your teeth into. It has intricate themes which can be applied to real life. All that hubbubaloo you freaks claim to care oh so much about. But beyond that, it's fun, honest, and endlessly charismatic. And that's something I find really, really special. People put down shonen and shows like Chainsaw Man for being immature when they truly enjoy them and just want to dress their taste up in a tacky suit and tie to fit in with a set of standards they
Why did you have to use that clip 3 times?
Don't truly understand. What's so funny is that it's this very immature desire to please that is Denji's biggest obstacle in the series, with his desire to appeal to Makima being deeply taken advantage of. Chainsaw Man is a unique mix of profound and stupid, and with such incredible charisma to most of the characters, I can't put it any lower than 6. I am an anime only though, so keep that in mind. I know a lot of people really took issue with the cinematic directorial style of the adaptation, and while I personally found it appealing for its juxtaposition... Oh my god. I was talking and I just couldn't shut up about Chainsaw Man. It's like possessing me. I gotta freaking get my mind off of anime for a second, go on a walk, and just get some fresh air.
I like the hair. The fuck? What is happening? What's going on? Oh no!
Oh, that's what I'm still in an anime video. Go away. Oh my! I try to take one walk, man.
Oh, that was awesome.
It's always happening.
Well, as usual,
That was excellent. That was great. That ruled. Absolutely more of that.
my nightly walk was interrupted by a supernatural being forcing me to stay home and watch anime. But thankfully, it was a banger this time. Tomoyuki Itamura, the less beloved Monogatari director, has been leveling up and coming into his own distinct style over these past few years, and Call of the Night is undeniable proof of this. Lighting shifts, quick cuts, perfect geometry, exaggerated posing,
I've never even heard of this show at all. This looks fucking mad interesting.
off-centered shot compositions, vampires, it's all here. Dazzling scenery is
Is this the character designer of oh, what the fuck is it called? The one with the candy store? She looks like the bitch from the candy store.
populated by immaculate character designs, and lighting or angle shifts are commonly used to totally transform the emotional landscape of a given scene. I could go on about this aesthetic and directorial effort for hours because the atmosphere is just that special, but the story itself is underrated as well. Sure, a human dating a vampire isn't exactly a novel concept in media, but the exploration here showing our protagonists learning the intricacies of romantic relationships, friendships, and everything in between is very satisfying to watch unfold. It's a story about nightlife, solitude, and letting your freak flag fly. And here's a cool bit of info. Anyone here
Actually, this shot reminds me a lot of Suicide Girl.
like the Mashal opening? The Dondodon opening? Well, those are performed by a band called Creepy Nuts.
Oh,
They
they got
are my
Creepy Nuts in this
MVP in
show?
anime music for the last few years, and they wouldn't even be here if it weren't for Call of the Night. Call of the Night is actually inspired by an older Creepy Nuts song, so when it finally got an anime, they used that song as the ED, and being so flattered that there was a whole show inspired by their music, Creepy Nuts decided to make the OP as well as an insert song for the show. It was their first time working within the industry so directly, and they've stuck around ever since to drop banger after banger after banger. So I thank Call of the Night every night for that simple fact.
Well, I had never heard of that show at all, and you totally sold me on it. That was a very well done segment.
My final point is Anko Iguisu. Yes, hold your applause, please. You're all too kind. Please, hold your applause. Hold your applause. Shut up! Number 4. For this next entry, I want to see if you guys can guess it within 3 clues. Ready?
She's really hot.
Number 1. This is one of the top 100 rated shows on both MyAnimeList and AniList.com. 2. This series is most
I hope God it better not be Mushoku Tensei.
commonly praised for its witty dialogue, shocking twists, and character arcs that slowly weave into each other for an epic
Some kind of monogatari.
conclusion. And 3. In just 13 episodes, this show does one thing better than almost any other anime I've seen, and that is portraying the experience of feeling pathetic.
Oh,
Can y'all guess it?
I have no idea.
It's Odd Taxi.
Oh, see, I haven't seen this at all. People have recommended this to me a lot, but I have not.
The first 5 minutes of this series absolutely stunned me. It was the little things, the imagery of our main character being too stubby to clean pigeon crap off his window, the bitter, struggling comedians who just aren't that funny bickering in the background as Otokawa drives alone, the careful, realistic mix of upbeat and dark character introductions during the montage scene, the especially naturalistic and down-to-earth dialogue, and the awesome sense of insignificance felt looking up at the idols following their dreams and performing on the most massive and enchanting stage. It's a series about wanting to do something with your life, wanting to respect yourself, and the many avenues low self-worth can take someone down. We follow various taxi customers' lives through a missing persons case, and they all come from different walks of life, but their stories
Oh my God, those fucking little dog girls on the right are so goddamn adorable.
gradually
And that little cat girl on the left there too.
interweave, showing that as insignificant as you may feel in the context of a massive city, it is because you are so connected that your actions ripple throughout and affect such a great web of people. We as the viewer navigate these ripples while working our way through a complex but rewarding mystery.
Why did no one tell me this was like a furry anime? Like, I guess it should have been evident from the designs that I've seen, but like, it didn't really, like, I don't know, why don't furries talk about this show at all? It's, or do they, and I'm just not realizing it?
Narrative. You can even supplement your detective work with fully canon audio files that can be found online, which really makes you feel involved in the narrative and the investigation. I recommend this show more commonly than any other one on the list because of how deeply relatable and down to earth it is, but also how satisfying it feels to have a modern, one-season-long anime actually have a well-rounded conclusion that ties up all the loose ends and resolves every character arc. Well, most of them, at least. Number
I'll have to watch it sometime.
3.
It seems like the kind of show my brother Victor would really like. I'm sure he's probably seen it. That's a cute ass image.
Listen, y'all,
Also cute.
I always hate to be the bearer of
Also cute.
bad news, but I'm gonna level with you guys for a minute here. The chances are, if you don't like Bocchi the Rock, you just don't know ball.
I might swerve in that corner, whoa.
This series
That's the best use of that song I've ever fucking seen. Wow, I didn't realize that was going to summon that right out of me. That's fucking hilarious. I totally forgot this was from this decade. Yeah, this definitely belongs. This is probably the most, like, in terms of, like, my audience, the kinds of people that, like, I talk to, the kinds of people that I, like, the kind of person I was as a teenager, this show would have hit. This show, I liked it. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I would have really liked this show as a teenager. It would have been a different kind of love, I think, because I think Bocchi is even more like me than almost any other slice of life lead character is. Like, that level of neurosis was where I was at that age, and I think seeing her story would have connected with me even more than, like, you know, Hidamari's sketch I always connected with Yuno, and like Watamote, you know, I have a whole video about that, and I caught on to that when I was like 19, so I was a little like old but still pretty pathetic, but my take on it was kind of like, okay, but nobody's this bad, right? And then people kept telling me, no, I am. But Bocchi is more like reasonable to me, of like, yeah, no, this is how neurotic I was in high school, and in many ways still am.
utilization of various animation styles, references, and even mediums to communicate its emotions meshes perfectly with the relentlessly dissociative character that is Bocchi, allowing the viewer to be swept up in the same unverbalized emotions and thoughts
I
as
love the phrase relentlessly dissociative.
she is. I mean, it really plants you in that noggin of hers, which I super appreciate. It's a show with strong production value, plentiful character animation, and lovable protagonists. Nijika is inspiring, Ryo is believable and charismatic, the pink thing is funny, and the music in this show is just sick. You can tell it was a show created around music as opposed to merely including it. Typically with performance scenes and
Yeah, by the way, me saying I gave it an 8 out of 10. The show is a 10 out of 10. You remember my No More Scores Please video where I explained that anything you give an 8 is just a 10 out of 10 you didn't love as much as you thought you should.
anime, it feels like an entirely different show with the changing of art styles or the characters suddenly snapping into their personas. But with this show, you can feel the emotions going into each set, can sense the hesitation and nerves, and truly appreciate the performance for what it really is. An expression of emotion. That is the show's biggest strength for me, its ability to communicate the emotions of these characters in such a pleasant and engaging way. I'd say another key...
Adrian.
What's a father?
Explain.
What's a father?
We are.
The father. The father.
9 months.
Wait, what was that, Dwayne?
Explain.
What's a father?
We are.
The father. The father.
Dwayne Johnson actually came up with the nickname The Father after watching X and falling in love with it.
9 months in my womb making me suffer. And she looks like her stupid...
The father.
If you would just get up and teach them instead of handing them a freaking...
岡ちゃんが教えてくれたいろんな見た目になれるアプリなんだって。どれどれ
Hopefully you guys get what I mean.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Number 2.
Christ.
I'm in an interesting spot here because I've
Zangex. Oh, fuck. Oh, that was perfect. Perfectly placed. Perfect timing for that.
already made pretty decent videos about both of the shows I have left to talk about. I think those videos are fairly comprehensive and you guys should go check them out if you're interested, but there's one thing tying them together that I had never noticed appealed to me so much until making this list. The first of these shows I'm going to speak on here is Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken, a show made by animation nerds, for animation nerds, about animation nerds. Sure, the dialogue is witty and surprisingly dense.
Just because you showed it there, the thumbnail... Sorry, I got distracted thinking about it and I kind of got quiet.
Them out if you're interested, but there's one thing tying them...
Yeah, this isn't really an honest representation of your video. Like, this isn't the kind of anime that you're talking about. So, I really think this is kind of not gonna help. Like, I think if you put, like, Eizouken and Bocchi and, like, all these shows that people really love in the thumbnail, they're gonna click on it so they can see Bocchi and Eizouken and all those. And then when those shows aren't in the first half of the video, that will make people watch all the way through the video so that they get to see Bocchi and Eizouken. So I think the thumbnail would definitely do with
First of these shows, it's for animation nerds,
Eizouken's
about
amazing.
animation.
This is another anime I forgot was this decade. I thought this was 2019, but 2020 feels very far away to me right now, so...
Nerds. Sure, the dialogue is witty and surprisingly dense. Sure, the character design is immaculate. Sure, But what I appreciate most here is the sheer creative passion and childlike wonder.
I should mention that Bird and I did cover both Bocchi the Rock and Eizouken as bonus episodes for the We Watch Anime podcast, and I think I'm probably just going to make those public soon, because the bonus episodes was a whole system we had where we would do one a month, and we got through like 3, and then we stopped having time for it, so there's no reason to newly sign up to go and get those old bonus episodes, so I'll probably just make those public soon.
On display. I feel inspired and even hopeful when I see such heartfelt and fanatic characters as Asakusa and Mizusaki, particularly because they go through all the unglamorous hoops and practical bullshit they need to pursue anime production. I know on the other side of the screen was a group of real-life, passionate animators and creatives with these exact same dreams and the exact same BS standing in their way. Because you don't just have to love animation to be an animator. You have to come to terms with sometimes turning in half-baked products. You have to learn to compromise with your team and their creative vision. You have to accept that just sustaining your own livelihood is probably going to take extra effort from other things you aren't as passionate about. You grit your teeth, rack your brain, and fight your way through every trial and injustice placed in front of you. You choose to pit the world against you, all because your love just runs so deep, and you're probably on some level autistic. Sure.
That was perfectly written.
Following your dreams is something everyone wants to do, but Eizouken is uniquely about that struggling creative life. I would love to shake every single animator who worked on this show's hand personally and express to them just how much I admire what they do. Obviously I can't, so I'm glad I can at least express it here. I love you, Science Saru, I love you, Masaaki Yuasa, and I love you, Sumito Owara. I love you all so much, but I guess not quite enough to not butcher your names. Now, time for some honorable mentions. Just kidding, it's time for number 1. I'm not doing all that. Number 1.
Oh yeah, since you had warned me about the XXXTentacion jokes in the video, and I do plan to make a video probably not long after this, talking about X's death and the hole that it left culturally. That it's a little sad that he's become a meme. He kind of always was, but you know, it would be nice if he had a better legacy.
Well, it's not a very standard pick. But this show embodies that willingness to put your passion and idealism to the test, to develop that resilient and grounded type of optimism I so admire and covet. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I like the one with the big zombies in it. Zom 100, Bucket List of the Dead, is disguised as
interesting. This is not at all what I expected. So this show, I think this show's good. I would, if this was in my top 10, it would definitely be at the bottom of it. Mostly because I didn't like the conclusion arc. Kind of really, it was very hit or miss for me. I do think this is very much like, this to me is the epitome of a young man's anime. Like, and maybe you don't have to be that young, but like it is the spirit of like the man coming into adulthood in modern day, where where real adulthood doesn't really come until you're like in your 20s. You really have to deal with the full brunt of what society is expecting of you, and like becoming your own man. But because of the fact that it has like the setting it does, I don't know, it has to create these like very strange scenarios in order to like re-explore the metaphors of like even after social collapse, society still has all the same problems. And I think that the amount of like legwork it has to do to keep like building those scenarios and keep them interesting while all like, I think it gets too lost in the themes. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that it'll introduce a scenario and it's like really obvious what that scenario is about thematically, but it's not necessarily interesting in like a moment-to-moment storytelling sense, or like the dramatic ironies are like something you can see from a mile away, So if you're interested in the show because the themes are really interesting to you, I can definitely understand that. Whereas I feel like the actual experience of it is sometimes great. The early episodes have some really great stuff in them, but to me, as it went, it just kind of I lost interest. The themes stopped hitting for me, and
it's a show about finding meaning, but really, it's a show about finding happiness.
Sad not to see any Jigoku Raku on here. Also, that would be in my top 5 for sure.
That distinction may sound unimportant,
and Jujutsu Kaisen probably would have made the list, but there were a few shows on here I haven't seen. Like I would put Jujutsu Kaisen and Skip and Loafer and Jigoku Raku all above Zom 100, but not necessarily above everything else on the list.
Or pretentious to some of you, but it means a lot to me.
Starting to
okay,
think now, like, what would
we
my
tackle
list
the
be?
ever cliched meaning of life question in such a fresh and hopeful yet legitimately intelligent and calculated way. We have comedy that genuinely hits because I have the sense of humor of a miscarried fetus. We have the intrigue of a burgeoning young studio and director here as well. If you guys are genuinely interested in hearing my more in-depth thoughts about this series, I recommend checking out my latest video. I dive pretty far into why I love it so much, but for the sake of keeping this entry to under 10 minutes long...
The same thing I did with my my top videos of top anime of, I think it was 2018 when Girlish Number came out, right? Where like I made like a top 20 video, and then for the number 1 spot, I'm like, by the way, I'm gonna make a whole other video just about Girlish Number tomorrow. Like,
I'd just like to say that it hit me right in the soul, man. Sure, the production falls apart, but that's also extremely thematically relevant and kind of hilarious. So, it's still my number 1 anime of the deck.
Did I say all those words over a lie?
Dawn to Dawn is a modern classic in the making.
Of course.
I have to mention it. I can't put it anywhere on the list yet because I'm trying to let it cook with season 2 coming this summer, but it is creativity unbound, and it has endless potential to become potentially the greatest anime of this decade.
I'm only actually 2 episodes into Dawn to Dawn, thanks to YouTube fucking with my video and me really going dark about it. But I would probably have a hard time not even putting it in like the number 1 spot just based on those 2 episodes, because they were really, really, really good. Anyway.
Well, that's my list. If you genuinely enjoyed, please like and subscribe. I'm begging you, please, on my hands and knees and all that stuff. On a real note though, making it to the end of the video means the absolute world to me. Let me know in the comments what you guys want to see next, and drop your own lists down below because I'm really fascinated to see what they are. Patreon.
At the very least, 2023 was pretty good. I thought this was a pretty good video. Hold on.
I'm sorry this video took so long. It was a lot of work, but you guys made it all worthwhile to me. So thank you to Karta, Sumgoon, Trey, Funky Boy Haas, Ev, Aesop, Hermit's Nook, and Artemis Locke. Have a wonderful day, wonderful people.
So what I'll say of this video is, I think you've got the basics locked down. Your voice sounds good, your microphone sounds good, the music sounds good, the editing is good, your clip choices are good, your meme choices are particularly good, the setups and punchlines rock. All the comedy bits were surprisingly effective. Nothing really made me groan. The live action segment was great. I think the biggest complaints I have about this video, aside from the thumbnail needs to change, is that a couple of segments were a little too long, and I liked when you started kind of catching on to that and like fading yourself out of the rambling. Honestly, there wasn't so much fat that I feel like it needs to be a tremendously shorter video. Like, I think it could get away with being like 23 minutes. Like, you could literally just cut like 5 minutes and it would just feel a little bit tighter. But I don't think it's so like loose that it's bad or anything like that. Nothing was like, oh, I hate the video now because I have to listen to this. You know, for me, as somebody who has seen most of those shows, there was like a lot of, oh yeah, I forgot Heavenly Delusion. Oh yeah, of course, Bocchi. Oh yeah, of course, Eizouken was 2020, wasn't it? It invaded. Wow, that feels so old to me now, you know? And then, you know, some of the other stuff that I straight up haven't seen that I became interested in. So I think in terms of like doing what this video is supposed to do, it's actually very effective. It's very good. Like, I can't imagine doing it too much better, honestly, without changing what it is, you know, because, like, if I was comparing this to one of my own videos in this style, mine had less editing, less humor. They are a little bit more dense in the sense that I really did try to like pack the entire point into like a couple paragraphs, and my videos are more focused on the eloquence of the writing, which you have too. Like, your writing is good and it is eloquent, but I think maybe it's like sometimes you are resorting to that because you don't know how to be funny about it, and then sometimes you're being funny because that's like the more fun way to make a video. I think, I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't need to try to sound as smart. It's not even that I think you're trying to like actively, like, I don't think you're going out of your way to try to sound smart. I'm just saying, like, if something feels like it tasks you to use like 3 $5 words in a row to explain it, just don't even bother. Nobody cares, you know, like, nobody needs to hear the rich reason they should watch the show. We are all watching the show in some level because we're hoping that it will tell us something we don't know. So, which you kind of expressed that sentiment really well in this video. Like, when you were describing, I can't remember which show, but you were saying that part of the point, or you were quoting that quote from that other quote about how part of the point of Chainsaw Man is that you don't totally get it. And I think with anime especially, part of the point is always that you don't totally get it. And I think you tapped into a bit of that in this video, stuff like the whole, you know, XXXTentacion dissociative meme bit. Like, that is itself mysterious. You tapped into that mysteriousness, and that's gonna be the most memorable part of this video. Like, if I were to, you know, try to remember what this video was, I'm going to remember what you picked, and I'm going to remember Seigex, you know, like the fact that you did the Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei chalkboard joke, you know, that you have a Furakafka avatar and that you made these specific meme edits. That's what stands out in the live action bit. That'll stand out in my mind because those are the personal bits. Those are the things that make it your video. And whether or not I got, anime recommendations, speaking for me personally as a YouTube viewer, this was more entertaining than the anime probably would be, because I don't know. For me, getting something out of anime takes like effort, like I have to kind of want it. And with YouTube, I can kind of casually, get something out of it, especially if it's a YouTube video about anime. So in a weird way, this was more likely something I would watch than these shows. And in that sense, that's why I'm saying, like, I don't think it would necessarily be better to make it like an 8-minute video, unless the point was to get people to go watch these shows explicitly. If the point is to get people to watch you, I think you did a great job. You only need to cut off like 5 minutes for it to be as dense as I would want it to be. And even then, it's not that big a deal. You just really got to figure out how to get this in front of the people who will like it. And I think the biggest problem I'm seeing here is you're playing into this stereotype of anime goonerism that isn't what your audience is going to resonate with. I think if you really lean in, I mean, you've got clearly a love for like Shaft and, of Zetsubo Sensei, which is rare. There's not a ton of anime fans who even know that show. I think the harder you lay in on that, if you could make your thumbnails look like they came from a Shaft anime, like all the Shaft fans are going to immediately know who you are. Like when I say that, I mean like literally everyone who loves Shaft will know who you are, like overnight. If you made your thumbnails all look like they somehow were from Hidamari's sketch or from Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei, like already the avatar stands out, but it doesn't make me assume that you're a YouTuber who like does that, or honestly, I could assume any number of things about you just based on the avatar. Maybe you're a teenager who has seen one old anime, I can't make any judgments. But if I saw that it was like a thematic thing, or that there's like an aesthetic, all of this to me just reads YouTube. This just reads young people shit, YouTube shit, young people shit. I wouldn't click on any of it. But that's because I'm old and and weird. What I will click on is something that looks like this. Something that looks like this. What I will definitely click on is something that looks like this. I will almost certainly click on something that looks like this. So just keep that in mind as a consideration for your branding. Also keep in mind, like, Thor High Heels is a graphic designer. You're not going to copy this level of... you're not going to copy this level. But if you can organize with somebody who could do this, this is what you want. Not the generic YouTuber anime look. All right. This is long, but I don't think it'll require much editing. I hope you enjoyed. I hope everybody enjoyed this. I enjoyed this. This was a pleasant way to have made $50 for me. So, thank you again, and anime forever.